Hey everybody, just want to make sure I get all the gear rigged up right now. I had a little bit of out of order sequence here. I had to start the recording after I started the live broadcast, so it was kind of spooling there. I was sitting there looking like this. Deer in the headlights. So, hey, it's Prospector Jess. I'm here. Tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about finding gold in Minnesota, or Minnesota. So, for your information, there is gold in Minnesota, even with all those glaciers. There's also probably a bigger thing, and that's called iron. Minnesota produces a lot of iron. So, it's one of those things where nominally gold will go strongly with iron, but in this case, it's somewhat weak. And you'll see that when I go over, how many locations there are. But there is gold in Minnesota. And so one of the things I wanted to kind of go through was, why it's there and so forth. So I have another map from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. I think I have that right. And I'll go over that a little bit, kind of showing where mines are in Minnesota and why they're there. Specifically, some of the geologic things and some of the things they're pulling out, like titanium. So let's get on with it. Tonight, I wanted to point out we still have... Again, let's see. So where do you start looking for gold? Well, you start looking for gold with your basic tool, a gold pan. But where? And that's why we do these maps. But the maps are not, I want to reinforce, the maps are not the end in themselves. There's a lot more things you want to integrate together in those 5 stages I talked about a week ago. Go look up that post. It's somewhere down below or up above or somewhere. Look up the 5 stages of gold prospecting. Okay, Prospector Jess on YouTube or here on Facebook. You look it up in the Hunting for Gold page. So now those things all relate to what we talk about on sourdoughminer.com in the /GDU/, okay, that product. I've talked about that a lot. In that product we talk about all these different aspects of gold prospecting. Starting your research, laying out your maps, figuring out your samples, looking and knowing where to sample. Where are the gold traps? Where are the gold flows going during high flood like we've been having this last month and a half? Where is that gold going to settle out so that when I get down there, where is it going? Where is it going? And by the way, it's going to go there again and again depending upon what the flow does. And every year when you get these massive floods, the currents will cut new banks and cut out sections and cross-cut it through and create oxbow lakes and all kinds of changes to the topology and topography. And what you want to do is basically get in there and find out where it moved to. And that's what the GDU is teaching you. It's all this business of how does all this fit together? What's the gold picture look like? And that's why I encourage you to take a look at that thing. We are currently working on some issues that we found, if you're going in and finding difficulty in getting to it or buying it or anything like that, let us know. Request contacts at huntingforgold.com. Just send a mail and say, hey, I need access or I need help or I need to buy, and we'll help you out. So that's all at sourdoughminer.com, but that's really kind of the cornerstone of what we're doing here with this social posting we're doing. Is focusing you on looking in there and seeing what's available, and a lot of these posts are available there, also on Hunting for Gold, either place, but I just want to encourage you to go over there. So let's go back to our subject. On this title plate we have Minnesota, and you can see right away there's this business of, here we go, Lake Superior. Well, north of Lake Superior we now have gold mines up in this region, and you can imagine they continue on across the international border because, remember, gold does not know politics. So it's not going to follow any political lines. It's flowing along geologic and hydrologic lines. That's its whole thing, and the thing you've got to learn to see is those lines. And then one of the aspects of dealing with those lines is, claims and claim law and prospect law here in Minnesota is very different from over here in Canada. It's just a fact. But there are aspects that you can get claims in Canada if you file correctly, and you just have to know the process. The fact is, though, they're different. Each process is different, and what you can do and can't do is different, and you have to be aware of that when you file a claim and also when you operate a mine in those areas. Just That's the facts. And in fact, you'll find in U.S. it varies from state to state and sometimes even county to county, depending upon what they have in the way of restrictions on mining, such as dredging. For a long time here in California, the dredging laws were simply certain rivers and certain times of the year. It corresponded to, like your fishing license. You had certain times of the year you could or could not dredge on those creeks or streams. And some places you couldn't at all. But that has changed now, and so we have a moratorium, which is also known as a blockade against gold mining. It's a problem. Basically what they're doing is defying federal law, and they're going to go to Supreme Court here shortly about all that. Meanwhile, back on the ranch, we're looking at Minnesota. So in Minnesota, we have these northern mines. Let's take a look at some of these real quickly. So we have gold, and the primary commodity pulled out of the Keeler prospect was gold. Let's look at the record real quickly like we always do. And down in here we find that this was posted in Simpson Day in 1992. Recent recording information here. Is it an active mine? It doesn't say. It says it's an unknown operation type. Actinolite, chlorite, epidote, garnet, and pyrite. These are all now epidote. Okay, that's another term for olivine. Okay, and olivine is an ultramafic. It's one of the primary components that you'll find alongside serpentine, and you'll find it buried in basaltic flows. It is part of what makes those things ultramafic, is the same content that's in epidote. And so chlorite, same kind of property. All these guys strongly go along with ultramafic intrusive properties. So that's interesting. Now they also say the host greenstone. Greenstone's another fancy word for serpentine and other stones metamorphosed. It is probably metamorphosed to chlorite, carbonate, leucocene, and other alteration products. So basically, contact metamorphism is what they're saying, and so that when the flow went in, there was a change in the rock structures adjacent. When the flow, as in an intrusive magma flow, went in, it heated the contact zone and changed the rocks, altered them. And so and that can take all kinds of chemistry depending upon what's with the rocks and whether there's water there and sulfur and things like that. And of course, there is sulfur with pyrite, so we know that. So this is an interesting find. Belts of volcanic plutonic greenstone granite, terrains of metasedimentary rocks. So basically what we're looking at is a granitic rock that was intruded by some magma, because granitic rocks, by the way, are not ultramafic. They're the opposite. They're sialic. They're high in silica aluminum. They're white. Mafic, black. Okay, so that's the difference. Black or green. It's kind of this thing where they transition, but the darker they are, or the redder the better is another way of saying it, because when it oxidizes, it turns from the dark blackish colors to red. Okay, the more it's going to be this ultramafic material that's high in minerals that have metals. Okay, so iron, zinc, lead, molybdenum, copper, silver, gold, platinum, all that stuff. Good stuff. So that's what's going on here. The primary rock here is called greenstone. I'm familiar with greenstone. This is Minnesota, but we have a lot of greenstones here in California. So this is something that you'll see in a lot of these belts where you have this volcanic activity in the past altering the material around it, and then you get these greenstones. And these greenstones are a significant harbinger, a significant indicator that there may be gold present in the area. There also may be jade, a valuable mineral in its own right as a collector's item, and stuff like that. So you're just sort of turning on your eyes and saying, okay, now my 2020 gold vision is turned on. I'm looking for these things because now I'm seeing some of these greenstones, and I'm seeing some of this chlorite, which has a certain property, and I'm seeing some heavy hematite cubes and some pyrites. Now I'm starting to see a pattern. Remember we talked about the associations? Now I'm turning that stuff on. So all of this indicates I'm going to take this piece of information, this one document here. Let me magnify it a little bit for you, if I can. Come on, wake up. Well, my magnifier is herewith broken. Okay, so we'll do that in the replay, but basically this whole area right in here is oftentimes chock full of vital data for you to put in your notebook before you ever set foot on your claim, because now you know what you're looking for. You're starting to look for this greenstone, and not necessarily at this claim. You're looking nearby, because this claim is where somebody found it and noted it, but there could be claims nearby or even in the regions away from this that have the same properties of intrusion that have this, I wonder if, written all over them. And that's what you're looking for. You want to go for those clues first. The later clues are, okay, based on that, where would I start sampling? Based on that, where have we found some pay? And so forth. That's the 5 stages. So you see the pattern. So back to Google Earth. So now we're looking at all these different prospects, and we see gold, pyrite, pyrrhotite. So we've seen that pattern before. Here's all these sulfides getting injected in here. Chalcopyrite, that's copper iron sulfide with gold and pyrite. So all these get melded together in that chalcopyrite, as I pointed out so many times here. Where are you? Come on, pet rock. Well, just imagine I had that nice golden piece of chalcopyrite. Look at one of my previous videos. You'll see it on 3 or 4 of them. But that's the stuff that you might be looking for. You might not be looking for nuggets at all. You're looking for that chalcopyrite that happens to have a high concentration of gold, and you happen to be able to put a claim in, and therefore you can get the mineral rights to mine that stuff out, pull it out, and take it to a refiner to have it reduced to gold if it has a high enough percentage, or not. Depends on the ratio. Okay, so that's something to be aware of. This whole area is full of these. Let's see, we got bornite, chalcopyrite, cubanite, gold, pentelandite, pyrrhotite, sphalerite, and so forth. And this is the Duluth copper, nickel, and platinum group elements. So here we go. Cobalt and gold is number 1 commodity. Nickel, platinum, palladium, copper. That would be pretty good stuff. Then secondary, we just get some cobalt and gold. And then tertiary is rhodium and ruthenium, which are also valuable rare metals. So here we go. That's an interesting prospect right there. Let's take a look way out here on McFarland Lake prospect. We have silver and gold coming in. So you can see all these patterns. Now the other place I wanted to point out is way down here by Granite Falls. There's this Granite Falls prospect with gold as a primary commodity. I don't know how old it is. I'm going to just peek in here real quick. 1992, Sims and Day. Now Sims and Day is simply probably some group that does their geologic reporting and trying to define and map out where things are. Minnesota has a lot of mining, especially in iron and iron-related minerals, titanium as well. And so it has a fairly active geologic survey activity going on in it all the time. 3M was named for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing for a reason. So now down here, here's the Delhi prospect, gold and gold. So same kind of properties down here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to a different map just for a diversion. Oh, not really. It's actually to illustrate. So let's flip to this map. This is a map provided by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and so I'm giving them credit. The map primary purpose is to show you various operations that are going on in Minnesota. This thing was produced, the map itself was produced back in 1998, way back then, okay? Antique. But what I want to call your attention to is these areas we've been talking about, because a lot of them aren't really as visible on this map. That's one of the funny parts. Their focus here is primarily going to be on these metallic operations. So they're looking at taconite and iron ore, because that's the main thing that Minnesota is known for, is that taconite and iron ore for production of steel. Lots of it, lots and lots of steel. Okay, that's why they call this the Mesabi Iron Range and the Kuyama Iron Range. Kuya. They're well, anyway, we won't get into that. So that's the idea. Is these spots look quite interesting, and then they dig up horticultural peat. That'll give you an idea of the background in this area. This is kind of boggy terrain, and loaded with all kinds of wilderness and lakes galore. So now, the primary thing we're going to be looking is down here. You see this copper nickel? That starts looking kind of like, okay, so anywhere we see these copper nickels, you see that might be an interesting area of interest. Down in here is sulfur. Well, sulfides and sulfur and, pyrites and sulfur and, just, worthy of kind of poking around in the, I would not go there to look. I would go and get some more geologic information and perhaps some reports from these mines in this area, which you can get from that USGS MRDS by flipping, because all I did was select gold as the primary commodity. I could easily flip it to sulfur and pull up all the sulfur mines in the area, or pull up, other minerals, metals. I don't know whether it has chalcopyrite or not. I didn't look. But it does have platinum, and it does have diamonds, and it does have, you get the idea. So you can pull down any kind of commodity you want and see if there's anything in the region that might be of interest to go look for. That's the other thing you can do with that mapping thing. I talk about that in the Government Gold Maps product. I don't have time to go into how to do it here. So the idea here is, one other thing I wanted to bring your attention is, this is all crushed stone operations down in here. But this guy right here, this little funny looking hashed, is titanium. And so they have titanium operations right in the same area we've been talking about, where gold, copper, silver, nickel. So this whole area along in here, now remember, this is on the northern coast of Lake Superior. We've been talking earlier in Wisconsin and Michigan about the southern coast of Lake Superior. So my guess is if you took this and shot on across into Canada over in this region, you'd probably be finding some similar kinds of geologic results. I haven't poked over there intentionally so far. Okay, but hint. Now, remember that a lot of this, again, is affected and impacted by the lower part here by huge amounts of glaciation and the overburden that drops when the glaciers back up. And that would be down on these southern shores, down away from the lakes. And so, so primarily, you're going to be looking on these regions that are not as touched by, but maybe have carved loose some lode and some material that is of interest, such as these pyrites, chalcopyrites, and various ores of heavy metals. And so that's kind of it for tonight. I thought I'd just touch on base with that stuff and let you know kind of a little bit about what's going on there. If we go back over here, let me pull this down if I can without completely annihilating my image. I want to go back up to this area up in here. So remember, memorize this point right here. And when I flip the maps, I want you to keep your eye on, right in here was where we said this is copper and titanium and things related, associated with gold, are found being mined actively right now, as in 98. Okay, so let's flip it to the desk with, let's see. So now we're looking at that, and we flip to our friend the gold map. Boom. And that's right out in here, right along in the area we were talking. Does that make sense? So that's it for tonight. I just thought I'd bring that stuff up, that, this is kind of how you want to start thinking. Again, take a look at the GDU joint. I think you'll be happy. It's a trial, cheap, $1, so give it a try. If you don't like it, let me know, and we'll turn it off. But the idea is, if you do, then it's a trial, and then it goes into a continuity program that you can be a member of and get this material access and get new introductory, new training material given to you on a regular basis. So let's let it go at that for tonight. Prospector Jess, over and out. Let me check and make sure that my audio is good. Oh boy, I'd invite Murphy on this one. The phone logs out automatically. Nice of it. So going off site, that was last night. So let me refresh it. And now, Hunting for Gold is live now. All 6 people. But that's 6 people we didn't have before. So, good. Well, in the meantime, everybody, good prospecting, and we'll call it a day at that. There are a couple comments here. Let me see if we've got anything that people wanted me to answer right now. Oh, so close to home. Hey, Avenger, Texas, says Ricky Stephen Alexopoulos says, I find gold nuggets in Vermont all winter. Just get out there and experience gets the gold. That's good. And then here's Marty Nelson, lives in Duluth, Minnesota. So there you go. Right up in this area up in here. Let me kick this out of the way. Delhi, Granite Falls. There's Duluth right there. So right on the shore. So one of the options there would be all this stuff we talked about in northern Wisconsin over this way, combined with what's going on up in here. But yep, Duluth, go right on up 168 and go over in this area. Look around, find some claims, make a claim, prospect, find gold. Can you find gold in the Mississippi River in Minnesota? Well, that takes us back to the whole business of glacier gold. You could find flour gold because of the glaciation here almost anywhere through this Midwest region. But it's so fine that it's so difficult. Now, some people are telling me, and I got this over last night on some of the posts, some people are pulling out ounce of gold kind of stuff, but they've got their fine gold process down pat. They're using high bankers or sluice boxes and running lots of water through them, and basically are reducing it to black sands and gold, and then they're using black sand removal techniques to separate all of that flour gold from those black sands, because the black sands and gold can actually, one, they can be stuck together, two, they can cause problems with the refining process. The black sands will cause the gold to get kicked out, because that gold is so fine and so platy that it forms like a little airfoil, and it'll just take off. And if you get any oil on it, it's gone. It just goes up and downstream. So what you want to do here is know about fine gold recovery, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you got to do with that, having to do with how you set your flows and how you tune your boxes and how you basically set yourself up with the right gear to reduce that, from blue bowls to shaker tables. There's all kinds of methods for doing that stuff, but it's a whole art in its own self, and we'll cover that later. So, good question. Rebroadcast. Yes, you can get rebroadcasts of this and of others on the Hunting for Gold page and on Prospector Jess's channel. Subscribe to Prospector Jess on YouTube, and YouTube will give you the gold you want. So just join us over there and join us here. And when I finish right now, it's going to show up on this page as a post that'll be rebroadcast. You can replay it anytime you want. And I just leave them up there for now. We'll see what happens when time goes. But at this point, you guys are so excited and interested, I'm glad to leave them there because it's fine. Any gold in the iron ore mines? That kind of is somewhat in this area, but remember the thing you're looking for is iron ore going along with nickel and copper, because those are the associated minerals and metals that kind of hang together. Not so much the iron with gold. You can have iron by itself, and that becomes problematic in your whole reduction process and your panning techniques, and sluice boxes get filled up, and garnets can be a real problem, for example. So a whole nother story I'll talk about at another time. And Marty says, thanks, good show. Thanks, Marty. I appreciate that. And we did do one for Virginia. Yes, go look it up down below or up above, down below. If you say fine gold in state, by the state name, like fine gold in Virginia, you should be able to get Facebook or YouTube to pop it up. Where can you find gold is the phrase I've tended to use, but I've also started shortening that to just fine gold in. And so give it a try. And let me know what you find. If you need help, post it, and I'll get back to you. We'll give you a link. All right. So, Tennessee and Kentucky and Virginia. Okay, so we'll be getting back over in that direction shortly. I just wanted to finish out the Great Lakes, although I got to go to the other side to really truly finish them. And then we'll be kind of doing some loops between Northeast and the Midwest, and we've still got a little bit of the East Coast to finish out. We did finish pretty much all of the West Coast up to South Dakota, North Dakota. So that's it for now. Good prospecting. Okay, good night. See you tomorrow. Prospector Jess, Hunting for Gold, over and out.